Hey guys, welcome back. It's your coach TAVIA, and you are listening to another fabulous episode of the Sweet Life Coaching Podcast. Today, you got me soul again. Boo, right? No magic guest. No, today I want to talk to you guys about the man in the can. So what's the man in the can? So if you can actually see me, I post this on YouTube, so you can actually see what the heck I'm talking about. But we're going to be talking about the man in the can today. And I'm showing it on the screen right now. For those of you listening, you can't see this, but I'm going to explain what I'm talking about, your little man in the can. And the man in the can is essentially what you are made up of when it comes to your own personal health, right? So when you come to me, obviously woman in a can, you also are made up of things that affect your health, or there's certain things, factors that affect your health, right? So we're going to talk about 7 factors of affecting your health today. So we're going to get really started right now. So if you are watching me on YouTube, which hello to everybody on YouTube, you can see me. We're talking about this little man in the can today. And again, what are the 7 factors that affect your health? So if you're looking at the screen with me, you can see on the very bottom here, you can see genetics is at the very bottom. There's a little picture of a man, just for those listeners out there, and he has basically a can over his body, and it's layered, so to speak. So at the very bottom of the man in the can is the very bottom is your genetics, and genetics play a huge part in how we are, how our health is made up of, and how we live, essentially. And that's basically the foundational of who we are, is our genetics. We have no, we can't do anything about our genetics. We're born with them. We can't say, hey, mom, I don't want that gene. Hey, mom, dad, I want that. I don't want that gene. So you get what you get when you're born. So genetics plays a huge part, right? And when you come to me as a client, this is the man in the can is what I show you. And this is something that we go through individually. If what in these little things, and I'll talk about the 7 of them really quick. It's genetics, toxins, metals, viruses, bacteria, environmental, and ultimately nutrition, or what you're putting in your mouth. So those 7 things make up what or how you are feeling. So when you come to me, we go through this and I start checking them off. And as you're looking at the screen here, actually, I'm looking at it and it's actually reversed. That's funny. Anyways, so we go through those, or I go through those and I start checking them off. Is there a genetic component? So say someone comes to me and they're having fatigue issues. Okay. And they're having, or they're not losing weight. They're having fatigue. They're not losing weight. They're feeling sluggish. Okay. Gotcha. So first of all, obviously we look at, what's putting your body in it from a nutritional standpoint, right? What are you eating? What are you putting in your body? That's like the basics, the bare basics, right? So when people say that I'm a nutritionalist or a nutritionist, I'm actually a functional nutritionist. So we look at what the food is actually doing to our body rather than actually just what you're putting in your body. Hopefully that makes sense. So essentially that's like the top of what we look at, right? Nutrition 101. What are you putting in your body? From there, we look at like environmental issues. That will be the second bar down on my little man on the can, is the environmental issues. So environmentally, what are you predisposed of? What have you been exposed to? Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in the farm? Were you exposed to pesticides? Were you exposed to a lot of molds in a moldy household? Were you in a cleaning business? All of those things play a factor. Did you live by a nuclear plant? Hello. Yeah, me, Hanford. So that would be another big component. Now, a lot of times we can't change our environment, but sometimes we can, especially if you're living in a moldy house. Get the heck out of there, guys. If there's a mold in your house, you need to go live somewhere else. Now, sometimes we just cannot afford to do so. So we have to look at, all the things. So the little third thing down on the man on the can is bacteria. 1, 2, 3. We have nutrition at the top, environmental, and bacteria. I'm starting from the top. Genetics was at the bottom. Remember, our foundation, our terrain. Genetics, we can't really do much with that, but I'm going to go touch back about genetics here in a few minutes. Okay, so third one down was bacteria. Have you been exposed to bacteria? Now, for me, of course, Lyme disease is a bacteria. Let's see, there's strep, there's staph, there's all kinds of bacteria out there that we're exposed to. And, you know, if you look way back when you're a kid, did you ever get strep throat? Did you ever get staph? Did you ever have get sick a lot? Did you ever have any kind of bacterial infection? Okay. So we need to look at that, right? We need to look way back in time and see if that's still playing a factor in your health. And because it does, guys, it does. Things that happen in your childhood, I hate to tell you as an adult, they creep back up on you. Yep, they do. So, and what happens, another example is this man in the can is our bucket or the can starts filling up, starts overflowing. And the spigot at the bottom, so to speak, isn't open, right? So we have to make sure all these things are cleared, if you will, or all these things have to be like figured out. And if they're not, then what happens? We're sick and we get a diagnosis like fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, MS, lupus, all these autoimmune conditions, scleroderma. There's so many out there. But there's so many different autoimmune conditions, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, that are happening. And it doesn't just happen, guys. It doesn't just happen. Yes, going back, genetics play a part, but it's very small. And I need you to pay attention to that. You know, people say, oh, it's in my genes, it's in my genes. You can change that. You can change that. Not what's in your genes, excuse me, but you can change ultimately how your body reacts if you know there is a genetic component there. Okay. So again, going back to, you know, we need to figure out if there's some bacteria going in your, you know, flying around in your system, in your bloodstream somewhere. Right below that is viruses. Viruses, oh my gosh. Okay, if you have been living under an eggshell in the last year, you don't know what a virus is then, but we all know about the C word. I'm not going to talk about that, but we know about other viruses that are out there, basic cold, flu viruses, right? But there's also like cytomegalovirus, there is Epstein-Barr virus, there's herpes viruses, HSV1, HSV2, HSV6. There's a lot of other viruses that are out there. Shingles, chickenpox, those are all viruses. And if you've ever been exposed to any of those viruses, which usually about 1 in 3 people have exposed to, probably, I bet almost every one of my listeners has been exposed to one of those viruses in their lifetime. I just bet you, I'd bet my right hand on it. So viruses play a part in your immune system. Viruses never go away, guys. They never go away. They stay in your body. They go dormant. Bottom line, you cannot kill off a virus. They go dormant. They just kind of sit there and hang out. They can be reactivated, just like Epstein-Barr virus. Epstein-Barr virus I talked about in a past podcast episode, and that is the virus that causes mono. It can be reactivated under stress, under lack of sleep, under trauma. Actually, now that we're talking about that, any kind of illness or past illness is a trauma to the body, and it can be reactivated very simply by another trauma or another stressor in the life. So another topic that I'm going to talk about here real soon, and I think you guys are going to love this, is the brain health. The brain health is a big deal when it comes to healing the body. And I have been learning a lot about this lately, about the vagus nerve and how that plays a part in my healing and my healing journey with all my head stuff and my teeth and my jaw surgeries, everything. It's a big deal. So we're going to talk about that later, but so stay tuned for that. But anyways, so any of these viruses, bacteria, anything that you've been exposed to as like a kid, they can still come out. And usually like in my little man in the can that I'm showing here, what happens is our bucket becomes full. We become stressed. We are eating like crap. We're not sleeping. We're just not taking care of our bodies. We're not moving. And something's like, oh, it pops up and we're in the doctor's office. They're like, oh, you have this going on. And oh, now we're diagnosing you with this. It's really crazy. So I want to point that out. So viruses definitely can be reactivated. They never go away, guys. You can't kill off viruses necessarily. You put them at bay. So there's that. Also bacteria, going back to bacteria, like Lyme bacteria, you know, you guys know that I have Lyme disease bacteria. Lyme is a bacteria, and the co-infections are also bacteria that can harbor in your body and just kind of fester and hang out there too. A lot of people ask me about Lyme disease in the sense of, can you ever get rid of Lyme disease? There's a lot of contradiction about that. And I'll just say this frankly, Lyme disease is a bacteria. Yes, you can kill some of it off. Yes, yes, yes. Is it hard to kill it all off? Unfortunately, it is. So it can still have, you can still have one of those little baby spiro sheets living out, hanging out in your bone, in your muscle, wherever. You can still have Lyme in you. I will always test positive for Lyme in the world of past infection. And if you've been exposed to Lyme, you probably always will too as well, but I will not test positive for positive infection necessarily. So again, it's a thing, is there. All right, moving on down. So again, at the top here, we had nutrition, second down, environmental, third was bacteria, fourth was viruses, fifth, metals. You guys have heard me talk about this in my past episode regarding what's going on in your mouth. And if you haven't heard that episode, go back. It's episode 15, I believe. What's going on in your mouth, what's really going on in your mouth. I talk about cavitations, metals, how your mouth plays a big part in your health. And this is what we're talking about with metals. It's metals in general. Teeth, your teeth have metal in them if you have cavities. If you have, well, not all cavities, let me back up. If they are silver, they are metal. If you have a crown and you see any silver in your mouth, they are metal. And they are not cubic zirconium, they are amalgam. Metal plays an interference with the way our body communicates. Guys, we are energy, right? We're energetic. We are made of water. We're made of energy. We're made of light. And when we have a metal in our mouth, it's gonna cause basically like an electrical interference. Just if you were like to put two metal to metal roofs together and they'd be scraping together. Oh, that sound just makes me ugh. So we have to pay attention to metals in our mouth. We have to pay attention to metals that we put in our body, lead in our water. And if you were to test your hair, which I do hair samples to test for metals, you can find out how much metal is actually in your hair. There's arsenic, there's all different kinds of metals that we test for. Mercury is a big deal. That's what's in our mouth, and those amalgam fillings that I highly recommend. If you have any in your mouth, get them out, guys. If you are having health problems, first thing I want you to do, I want you to go get those metals out of your mouth. Get them out. It's the cost of like getting a cavity removed. Go get the white fillings, get them out. But I want to preface this by saying you need to make sure you have a holistic doctor doing it correctly. You need to wear oxygen. You need to have a rubber dam on, and you need to make sure they are doing it properly. So you're not re-ingesting those metals when they take them out. I just had a friend have her metals taken out. They did not do a rubber dam. They did not do oxygen. So she's not re-ingesting or breathing in those fumes of when they're grinding out those metals. You got to do it right. If you need a holistic dentist, I will send you the names and numbers of ones locally in your town, just FYI. Okay, that's my soapbox about metals. You guys, I'm passionate about this because the thing is that these are things that I've had to go through. I don't want you to go through all of this. You know, I'm in my 40s. Had I known this 10 years ago, it took me 10 years to get diagnosed with Lyme and start figuring out all this crap that was going on in my body. My bucket was overflowing. I don't want your bucket to overflow. You don't have to do that. You don't have to wait till you're 40. If you're in your 20s, my God, let's get cracking on this now, crack-a-lackin'. And let's clear these things and start working on these things. And I hate to say it too, but a lot of my patients, a lot of my clients are like in their 20s and they're sick, guys. And why? Well, it's this bugger up here. Number 2, environmental. A lot of things, the food we're eating is just yuck nowadays. It's not, we don't get it from grandpa and grandma's garden. We get so many pesticides. We get so much glyphosate. There's so much out there that we don't have control over. It's really frustrating. So, you know, but let's not wait till your bucket's full. We can start doing things now, clearing the things now, and I can help guide you to do that. Excuse me. All right. So let's continue to go on to the man in the can here. So number 1 was nutrition. Number 2 was environmental. 3 was bacteria. 4 was viruses. 5 was metals. 6 is toxins, just generally toxins in general. Okay, again, going back to what I was talking about with our food, you know, we have exposed to so many more toxins. I think it's like, oh gosh, I can't remember the data on this, the actual figures, but it's like 3 times more toxins exposure are kids nowadays that are being born than it was I was. It might even be higher than that. It's ridiculous. It's in the air we breathe. Like I said, the food we eat. It's everywhere. And I mean, look right now what's going on with our planet. Okay. And again, I don't get political whatsoever on this, but just take a look outside, look in your news. What's going on right now? We're on the West Coast, or I'm on the West Coast, fires. There's a lot of fires going on right now. The heat index is really high, right? The world is changing. The climate is changing. There's a lot more storms going on. There's a lot more things going on. Tornadoes I just saw yesterday back east. It's crazy what the weather patterns are doing. So just think of it from that standpoint of weather patterns, smoke that we're inhaling. That's not good for our lungs, right? Last summer, it was atrocious. We had a whole, what was that, whole like 10 days where we were like socked inside with the smoke. It didn't move. It was like the most unhealthiest air ever I'd ever been exposed to. I was worried, guys. It was crazy. So the toxins you're exposed to, pollution, what city do you live in? Do you have high pollution in your city? Yeah, well, you're exposed to some toxins, you know. Are you around a smoker? Do you have someone that smokes in your house? There's a toxin right there. An old house, there could be asbestos in the house. There's so many different things you don't think of that could be really making you sick. And you're looking at your health like, why am I sick? Why don't I feel good? Look around you. Just look in your house. Like the chemicals. Do you use a lot of chemicals to clean with? Try to use safer products, more natural products. Ladies, we put on so many toxins on our face. I'm looking at myself right now. I got some makeup here. I try to use as much natural stuff as I can, natural deodorant, that's not aluminum free. Going back to metals, girls and boys, aluminum is in your deodorant. Get aluminum free deodorant. Okay. So all of those play a part, right? And then finally, like I said, at the bottom, this man in the can, genetics. So let's talk about genetics for a minute. So genetics are something, again, we just can't, there's nothing we can do about it. We're born with them. We can't choose that, right? But what we can do is we can do some testing. We can definitely do some genetic testing on you to see what you're predisposed of. So I can do genetic testing for you if there's something you are curious about. Like one of the biggest tests I like to do is the MTHFR gene. And that is the methylfolate gene. Basically, are you processing L-methylfolate? L-methylfolate, you can have a single mutation, a double mutation. It causes a lot of illnesses, a lot of predisposed illnesses, I'll say. And when you can't process L-methylfolate, you can't process your B vitamins well, and essentially you can't detox properly. So like me, I have it and I have a double mutation. Lucky me. Thanks, mom and dad. So I have been sick a lot my whole life. And it does explain a lot of things why I have never felt good, So that person that told me years ago, I thought you were hypochondriac, you know what? You can stuff it in your face, because you know what? I had a reason. It wasn't all in my head, and I knew it was never in my head, but gosh darn them. You know what? If anybody tells you that it's in your head, go tell them to go fly a kite, because you know what? There are people like me that will listen to you, and I get it. Who wants to be sick? No one wants to be sick. No one wishes up illness upon themselves. They come out of the womb and says, I'm going to get cancer. I'm going to get lupus. I'm going to get Lyme disease. No one says that. No one wants that. We all deserve a healthy life. God wants us on this planet to have a fulfilled, healthy life. Disease wasn't made by, in my belief, it wasn't made by the power that I believe. I believe disease was made by the man when it was man-made, and when things started happening. And actually, it's kind of funny that I'm talking about this right now. I'm going to share this. So about 20 years ago, I was at this conference, and the head Indian, the chief Indian from, the movie with Kevin Costner. Gosh, now my brain all of a sudden. Anyways, a movie with Kevin Costner's and the Indians, and I'll think of it in a second. Anyways, and Tatanka, he always said Tatanka, the buffalo. Anyways, that chief Indian that was in that movie was at this conference that I was at. It was a health conference, and it was a conference talking about nutraceuticals. And nutraceuticals are natural products that are like close to pharmaceuticals, but they don't have the drug interactions, and they don't have drugs in general. Anyways, and he was talking on stage about how it wasn't until the white man started killing off our land they use berries and things like that for like medicine, right? All the natural things. But when they started killing off the buffalo, Tatanka, when they started Dances with Wolves, that's the name of it. When they started killing off the carnivores, like the meat, and then disease started happening because the meat would get diseased and stuff. That's when they started seeing all this disease happen. And it was very fascinating to me that he was talking about this because it made sense to me, essentially. But it's true. It was kind of man-made, all of these diseases. And then, going back to the C word that's going on right now, there's speculation that that was man-made. Again, I'm not getting political and I'm not going there with you guys. You could figure it out. So, but that's speculation. That's totally allegedly been man-made. And so long story short, what I'm getting at, genetics, going back to genetics, right? We can't have control over that, but what we can have control is finding out what our genes are doing. We can go back and find out, if we're predisposed to a disease. If we are, then great, let's do something about it. What nutritionally do we need to put into our bodies to heal the body, to maintain the body, to keep the body in balance? And when we have an imbalance, a dysbiosis, if you will, in the gut, that's when disease festers. That's when disease happens. And that's when things go havoc and wreak craziness in the night, right? And the next thing you're in the doctor, you don't feel sick, or you feel sick, and then you're getting a diagnosis. So if you have a predisposition, to something in the family, let's get you checked. We can check on that. I can check your, well, I have a whole panel of things that we can get you checked for, but that is something that is good to know. And I think it's super important. I'm going to say this right now, and this might be controversial, but I really believe that I wish I would have been tested for MTHFR as a baby. Why? Well, I think babies nowadays should also be tested for that before they are giving another vaccine or jab, because it has been proven, this is not me saying this, that MTHFR gene has been shown in about over 95% of autistic kids. Again, do your own due diligence, do your own research. So, and thinking about that, if we are giving our kids vaccines at a very young age, I'm not anti-vaxxer, just FYI, I'm do whatever is best for you, do your own research. That's the kind of my mentality. So I do think there's validity in some of the vaccines that are out there. So I'm just saying that right now. But do what's best for you. But what I'm saying is if we have something that is predisposed of, or say we have a baby and we find out they have MTHFR at birth, I probably as a parent would not choose to get all the vaccines all at once, or maybe choose the ones that are the most important, because that poor baby cannot filter out all that stuff all at once. It's harder on their bodies to process it. That's what I'm getting at. So think of that for a minute, right? If you have a child out there, if you're having a baby, get them tested for MTHFR, like when they're born, maybe before they get their vaccines. I'm just saying, again, do what you like. This is my podcast. I can say whatever the heck I want, but I'm just saying you might want to consider that, because if we do, we don't want more junk in the body and to cause more problems down the road, essentially, right? Now, I had double mutation. So you're like, Tavia, well, you're fine, right? You're fine. I had vaccines when I was a kid. Now, God bless America, I did not have as many vaccines as they do the kids now. It's ridiculous, kind of crazy to me how many pokes and jabs these kids get at such a young age as compared to when I was born in the 70s. So it's a lot different back then. But so, did that affect me? Maybe not. I don't know. So it's just something to think about. I want you to think about that. Okay. So, all right. So I'm going to wrap this up here. I just want to talk to you guys a little bit about this little man in the can that I always talk about. Some things you guys need to consider when you are looking for some help out there. If your doctor doesn't talk to you about this, it's because they just don't. And that's probably not their scope of practice. This is something that I talk about. Again, I am not a medical doctor. I am a functional nutritionist, and I look at the root cause of what's going on with your body at a biochemical level. I do the lab work. I do the testing to find out what's going on. I do not diagnose. I do not treat with medication. What we then do is if there's deficiencies, I can alarm you and let you know. That is totally okay to do, and let you know what's going on with your body. If you have further questions, I will direct you to your family physician. One last thing I wanted to point out, and that is an organic acids test. That is one test that I do, and I have right here again for those of you watching on YouTube. You can see this. If you want to check me out on YouTube, Health Coach Tavia, just go there and you can see all this that I'm showing today. But this is an organic acids test, a very comprehensive test that I do for a lot of my patients. And why do I use this? Because it tells me a lot of data that you're not going to get from a basic CBC chem panel. It's so funny. I had one of my best friends take this test, and she had high yeast in her gut, and she had all these problems going on. And I was like, I think it's yeast. I think it's yeast. Then she goes to her gynecologist, and she's like, no, you don't have yeast. You're fine. Everything's fine down there. But the long story short of it is guys, even if it's not present in an area of the body, you can still have a systemic yeast problem. You can still have candida and yeast going on in your body. It doesn't have to be fully present. It will eventually come out. Yeah, so anyways, but one reason why I like this test, again, it checks, I'm gonna tell you what this checks for. Very comprehensive, very affordable. It's yeast and fungal markers. It checks for bacterial markers in your gut, Clostridia markers in your gut, checks your oxalate metabolites, how things are running there, how things are filtering like through your kidneys, you know. It checks for your mitochondria marker, your engine. How's your Krebs cycle running? How's everything running with you? We check your neurotransmitters, like your serotonin, your dopamine. Guys, it's really important to know how much serotonin and dopamine you're producing. Excuse me, that could be an indication of why you're so depressed. And if your doctor hasn't checked those levels, guess what? We need to do that. We need to see how much acid is going on in your brain. If I had a client that was having a young kid, and he's having a lot of brain fog, and we found out he had this acid in his brain, basically, that's causing this chemical imbalance, and it's a toxicity. And essentially it causes Alzheimer's and later on, you know, so we found that out now, and we can do something about it. So yeah, let's see, what else does it check? So check your folate metabolism. We check your ketone and fatty acid. We check your nutritional markers, your B12, your B6, your B5, your B2, your vitamin C. Have you ever had your vitamin C levels checked? I bet you haven't. Your CoQ10, your glutathione precursor and chelating agent. How much are you detoxing the crap out of your man in the can? We check your biotin level. Is your hair coming out? Well, let's check your biotin level. Again, we check your glutathione, we check your ammonia in your body, your indicators of detoxification. Is your body getting the junk out? Is it or is it not? How is that working for you? And then lastly, we check your amino acids. Guys, have you ever had your amino acids checked? No. Well, guess what? It's important to have amino acids. Sorry, guys. And then lastly, we check your creatinine levels, your indicator for fluid intake. Like, how are you metabolizing your fluid intake? So you may be drinking a lot of water, but you're not metabolizing it. So if you're interested in any of these testing, please let me know. Set up an appointment with me. We can talk about which one would be best for you. Again, and let's get you going on the right path. So that is all I have for you today. And I want to thank you for joining me. I hope that information was interesting, fascinating, and you learned a little bit from me today on what you can do to better your health and what tests possibly you need to take to get you and your family on the road to wellness. So I'm Coach Tavia. I want to thank you again for being here. I love you guys. Thanks for listening. Have an amazing day. We'll see you on the next episode. Bye-bye.